Hey folks, how are you? Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands, AncestryLands.com. Leaving the Philly area today. Weather's been a little, back and forth, right? Because we've had some cool days, some hot days on the Northeast, and weather's like this generally, before spring or summer hits. All right, good. Hey, you good? You good? No problem, all right? All right. See you tomorrow. Okay, good. Being a good person is a hard thing. I'm going to start off there. Because when I say being a good person is a hard thing, is because being a good person has to do with being a good person when it's not easy. Go ahead. I like that there's less street for you to walk on. And when I say that being a good person is a hard thing, it's because it's easy to make excuses on why you can't be a good person. It's easy to make excuses on why you're not consistently being a good person. It's easy to give in and say, well, because they're doing it, it gives me the right for me to do it, right? It's easy to make excuses that say, because others are or are not, I am, also. And why I say that is, right there, just checking on a person, patient that I saw earlier, making sure he's okay, because I'll tell you one thing, you got to trust people to be who they are. You do. You really got to trust people to be who they say they're going to be for you. Whoever they show you they are, you need to trust them to be just that. I say that because I remember something from DMX, the late rapper DMX. He used to say that when people show you who you are, you should believe them. When you have a person who's honest, you should trust them to be an honest person when honesty is called into play. Let me in. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. It's a lot of times, thank you. He breathes the same good stuff, man. You trust people to be a person who deceives you. You trust them to be a deceitful person. And even that's when a time where they might be honest or their honesty is called into question, you can rely on your history with them to give you some kind of inkling about what the present or future may hold. And I'll give you a great example of that. This is something that my father taught me a long time ago. He gave me these, it's the funniest thing is that when my father told me something about, when I'm a kid, he would tell me these things and it would be way over my head, but they were in a story, so I will remember the story rather than maybe get the lesson every time. So, and anybody who knows me, anybody who's been friends with me has known me, I've told this story to. If you've heard this story, then you're one of the, you definitely are a part of that inner circle. If you haven't heard this story, either I forgot it at a time or, hey, you just didn't make the cut. But the reason why I say all of this is because you hear stories about people in business. They get screwed over. You hear stories about people, with their family members, they get screwed over. And a lot of times it's because people are showing you who they are and you refuse to believe them. A woman meets a guy, he's a bad guy, he's cheated on girlfriends, you met him cheating on a person with you, and now you're in a relationship and you're surprised that he's now cheating. Or you saw a girl dating bad boys and that's what she liked, and you're a good guy and you wanted the girl so bad you chose to ignore all the warning signs, red flags of poor choices being made, and yet and still you decide to go down that road. You decide that, hey, I'm going to be different. Maybe it'll be different with me, or she'll be different because of me, or the old adage, I can change them, her, or him. And I don't mean that as I'm talking about whether it's male or female. I can be the one to change them. For a guy who's 43, believe it or not, it's very hard for me to change my ways, the way I am, the way I think, the way I practice, the way I do things. It's going to be very hard. And if I am going to change, it's going to come from an internal source, an internal drive, or a motivation that causes me to change. Yeah, I've taken care of people with heart failure, emphysema, still smoking cigarettes, don't matter. Lung cancer, still smoking it up. And generally, the only time I see a person change, truly change, is generally when death is knocking on their door. And I've learned as a human, many times they need the calamity to come upon them in order to elicit a change. Very rarely can someone see light rain and say, let me get an umbrella, and it's just misting. Or if they smell rain. So again, when you are looking at someone, you need to do your research, you need to do your history, you need to have conversations, whether it's dating or you're a friend or it's family or you're doing business with them. You need to do your research and make sure you have an idea of what this person is and who they are, so you're not surprised when things don't turn out the way they do. I've done hard money lending in my lifetime, and I started off small, even though a few of my clients wanted larger money requests. And a lot of times, I've seen that, hey, no, they were qualified. They went, paid it back. Good. Then they asked for a refill on that loan amount. We did it again. Boom. Good. They had good paying history, never missed a late payment or anything else. So I could keep raising the amount that I would lend in order to make sure that they were fully funded, because they have a good history of paying. This is why credit is so important. It's so important. It's an indicator of how you will pay when you sign on the dotted line. And this is why we have some of the issues with the student loans, because people aren't reading the fine print on the contract. People are not looking at what they're signing on to and saying that, okay, I know I'm going to pay this amount. I know this is what my all-in is. This is where I'm at as far as everything else is concerned. Thank you, buddy. I'll just jump in ahead of you. Appreciate it, bud. Thank you. And again, you're not looking at the fine print where it shows you what you're all in for. So when you look at a person that's not going to pay, you're going to see, again, people try to get out of things that they're indebted to. You're going to try to be in a relationship with a person who is not relationship material, then be surprised that you made a bad choice. How? And again, is the fault in the person that showed you who they were? Or is the fault in you as a chooser? I'll let you answer that. But again, if, and you've seen this too with coaches recruiting bad athletes. Great as the talent may be, the athlete is not a good athlete. Too temperamental, too this, too that. Not focused enough. Not disciplined enough. And what ends up happening, they become a problem. No matter how great the athlete is, it's bad for the team because they poison the well. The same thing with your relationships, your business relationships. You got to know when to cut the bait. Because again, when you see evidence that people are absent in their presence, it also is the evidence of their absence. I'll leave you with this story right here. And again, this is a cautionary tale. This is a story that I've told many a friend when they've come to me talking about girlfriends that messed around on them, when they've talked to me about guys that have hurt them, people that have been disloyal or unfaithful, or people that have just downright done something to disrespect a boundary of trust that you've had with people. And the story goes like this. It's a man walking through a forest, and man comes upon this trail. He finds what seems to be a snake. He thought it was dead. And the snake is really gravely injured. It's in poor health on death's door. Now, the man instinctively thought to end the snake and, no longer let the snake keep suffering. Very venomous and poisonous snake. The man, for a moment, looks at the snake and pauses and has some compassion in his heart. The man decides to gently see if the snake is alive enough to be defensive or offensive and try to bite him, and the snake does not. The man feels bad for the snake and says that, let me take the snake home and try to nurse the snake back to health. The man picks the snake up, and the snake doesn't bite him. The snake is very much still alive, breathing, but the snake is not doing anything. The snake lays its head calmly on the man, and the man feels a sense of security and safeness around that snake, even though he's somewhat apprehensive. And as the man walks the snake home, the man is always keenly aware that this snake could bite him. But the snake doesn't bite him and actually warms up to the man. The man goes home, and on that journey, he begins to feel, this whole time the snake hasn't bit me. The snake's allowed me to gently hold him. Even though the snake seems like it's in pain, it still would not bite me. The snake seemingly understood that this man was going to take care of him. It was going to help him. Well, the man gets the snake home, and the man mends the snake's wounds, gives it water, food to drink, and the man takes his time each day treating the snake with tender care. And in a few months, the snake does heal, does go back to its full strength. The snake is pretty much hunting and eating without the man doing, the hand feeding the snake. The snake lets the man touch him, pick him up, handle with care, because the snake and the man feel like they have a sense of trust. The man feels he can trust the snake. He considers the snake his friend or his pet. And months pass by, and as the man considers letting the snake back go, or go, back out into the forest, the man falls asleep one night. On this particular night, the man forgot to put the snake up into its container to the tank. And the man doesn't even think about it, because the snake's always been fine with him, right? And during that night, the man's dreaming, thinking tomorrow is going to be the day he lets the snake go back into the wild, because it's time to let the snake go home. In the middle of the night, the man is awakened as he feels a stinging pain in his lower leg. He turns on the light and sees down on his leg, blood dripping from his leg. When he looks back where the trail of blood leads to, it leads right to the bed. And in the bed, he can see something moving, something underneath the covers. He pulls back the covers, and lo and behold, what does he see? I'll give you a second to think about what's underneath those sheets. If you said the snake, the same snake that he took care of, you're right. And again, don't forget, at the beginning of the story, the man, what I tell you, this snake was one of the most venomous snakes that there is. And as this man started to kind of thrash around and fade out of existence, he looked back to think about the same snake in his bed slithering towards the door to go out into the forest. And the man thought to himself as he lay there, taking his last breaths, he managed to speak a few words. And he said, "Man, snake, after all this time, I took care of you. I clothed you, fed you, got you back full strength. How could you bite me after all this time? You let me pick you up, everything." And as the snake slithered out, the snake stopped. As the snake turned around, looking at the man. As the man lay there gasping, taking his last breaths. And in one dark, magical moment, the snake spoke. And the man, as he lay there taking his last breaths, heard the snake say to him a simple couple words. And he said, "But I'm still a snake." And the snake slithered away, and the man faded into darkness. Think about that story there. So again, you got to trust people to be who they are. And you can never forget when a person shows you who they are, you need to believe them. You need to trust that what you're seeing is true, because a snake is still a snake. Now think about that, right? The snake told him, "But I'm still a snake." Which means, if you don't understand that no matter what you do, no matter how well you do things, no matter how much trust you feel, a snake is still going to be a snake and do what a snake does. You see these people out here owning pet lions and pet tigers out in Dubai. A lion's still going to be a lion. A lion is still going to do what a lion does, and you don't know what that animal is going to do, no matter how docile or how domesticated that you think you have that wild animal. It's still a wild animal. When you have a person that is not equally yoked with you, they still are going to default back to their factory settings. When you have a guy that's been out there dating multiple women and he's been out in the streets, you should not be surprised after 10, even 15 years, that man decides to go back out there if you were not what he decided he wanted. And the same goes for a man. You try to lock a woman down, trying to get her pregnant to keep her, doing everything you can to win her because you're not her choice. You're what's safe. Then you can't be surprised when she finds a bad boy again, when she needs that excitement. And when you find someone who's militant in their ways, who's dutiful, honorable, and they're faithful, then when times of question come into play, you can trust on them being dutiful and faithful to lean to. Now, there are exceptions, and again, I would say this in every video. If you're of a hive mind, then you need me to tell you the exceptions. I believe if you're watching this show, watching this program, this broadcast here, you would be of the elevated mindset to understand there are always exceptions to the rule. There are always. So again, when people show you who they are, you should believe them at what they present. Not who they pretend to be, but when they show you they're a person that's getting out of cars, flashy glamour and glitz, and you find out that they're a fake it till you make it, and you decide you want to do business with this person, well, you shouldn't be surprised when the numbers don't look right for you, right? When the accounting's not there. You know how many times I've been sitting here in business rooms and guys pretend to be richer than what they are, pretend to have more than what they claim to be. They rent cars to show you what the car looked like for that video, for that event. They act like they're people for a culture, for helping out people, and really what they are is helping out themselves. They don't have a track record of showing people they're helping people truly. They're helping people to get something out of it for what they want. And there's really nothing left behind tangible for a person to say they've gotten a true value. No one's going to tell stories or sing songs of their name. No one's going to speak of them in high reverence and honor. No one's going to look at them and say, man, that really is a good person. There's never going to be a story told about them, about how this one time they went out of their way, just like I did earlier, just to check on somebody. And I didn't do that for views and likes. That's just who I am. So when you see me, when you know whether I'm your nurse, your land guy, or I'm writing to something about in my book, or I'm just a person giving you advice as a mentor or even a friend, or just as a content creator, it's coming because you see me and I'm presenting the same thing over and over to you. And at least of all, this message can be later on. I want my kids to hear this, because my children at 23, they will never see this 43-year-old dad unless it's in this video. And this is a message I leave to them and other children and the people who will see this video coming up. So that's all I have for today, folks. Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands. Please make sure you support me and go get my book, Getting Dollars from Dirt, A Beginner's Guide to Vacant Land Investing. The link is in the description section below. It is on Amazon. Please make sure you go and support me out there. Get the book, learn some knowledge, buy another one, get it as a gift for a loved one, for a birthday, anything else. My kids all have a copy of the book. Any which way, folks, remember, I hope you've been enlightened, educated, and least of all, entertained. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Phil Davis, and I always told you guys, you're either going to own property or you'll be owned as property. Go to ancestrylands.com and make sure you own some property. Phil Davis, I'm out. Peace.